So let me start off really quickly. James and I, we used to write each other letters and notes and stuff all the time when we first got married. Notice I say used to because we do not do it anymore. I mean, it is really I don't even know the last time we gave each other a card or something like that. But every time we do write one another something, we always end it with love you more, love you most, things like that. And maybe some of you guys, you do that, or you've got some kind of little thing that you say to one another. But when I was thinking about this, that popped up in my head about how we always say, love you more. We're always trying to be no, I love you. I love you more than you love me. Look at what I did. We say stuff like that to each other all the time. But when James and I first started dating one another, I will tell you that he started off our relationship by telling me that I would always come second. So, who really loves the most here in this situation? I'm just kidding. Listen, I'm sharing that for a reason, because when he said that to me, saying that to me, the world would be oh my gosh, why would you say that to someone when you're first starting off trying to establish a relationship? But within our relationship, him saying that to me is one of my most favorite things that he ever said to me. And the reason I say that is because I knew that he would always love God more than me. And I needed someone that was going to be that way. I needed someone that was going to love him more, because in doing that, he has been the best husband he can be to me. And so the world would look at that and say, "Oh gosh, don't say, don't ever say to the person that you're dating, you're going to come second." But in the situation with us, it made me feel secure, because I knew in that moment that he said that I could trust him, that I could trust in the relationship that we had, because he was always going to come to God first. He was always going to ask the Lord first. And for any of us that's in this room, that's in a relationship, you know that we fail, don't we, as humans? If we're looking for the answers to everything in another person, it's not going to be good always, right? And so that got me thinking about, just the people that are closest to us, how we love them, how it affects us, how it affects the way we love God. And so in Matthew 10, starting in verse 37, this is Jesus' words. He says, "Whoever loves father or mother or son or daughter more than me is not fit to be my disciple. And whoever comes to me must follow in my steps and be willing to share my cross and experience it as his own, or he is not worthy of me. Those who cling to their lives will give up true life, but those who let go of their lives for my sake and surrender it all to me will discover true life." That's Passion Translation. Now, New King James, I love this because he says, "He who loves father and mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he who does not take his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me. And he who finds his life will lose it, and he who loses his life for my sake will find it." And I started thinking about that, about how he said we're not worthy of him. And that really got me thinking, because I'm like, Lord, I want to follow you in a manner that's worthy. C.S. Lewis says, "When I have learned to love God better than my earthly dearest, I shall love my earthly dearest better than I do now." And that quote was so powerful to me, because I can see truth in that. I can see so much truth in that, because in loving God before our family, we're proclaiming to the world the power and importance of Jesus. It's actually proof that loving him most actually allows us to love our family best, isn't it? People see us and they see the way we love our family and they think, man, how did they do that? And that gives us this opportunity to share with them, the reason I'm this way is because of him. The reason I can do these things for other people around me is because of him. In Sunday school today, we were talking about just like our daily lives reflecting Jesus. Our daily lives reflecting who he is. And we say stuff like that all the time. We're always talking about, our life needs to reflect Jesus. Our lives need to look like Jesus. But what does that actually mean? What does it really look like when we start like breaking it down and talking about it? And I started just thinking about some different stories that have happened to me where in these moments, I was like, Lord, thank you so much because God, they're seeing you. This isn't me. This is not in my own strength. One of the times that I remember thinking this was I was in the grocery store and I had Gracie and Sammy and Josie with me, and they were little. They were all like super little. Grace was probably like 3 years old, and it was like crazy chaos. Anytime we went anywhere, it was just chaotic. Sammy liked to run away from me a lot whenever we went like in public places, so I was like always chasing after a kid. I always had them all like in the car trying to like make everybody happy while I was trying to also remember what in the world I was supposed to be getting from the grocery store, which I always forgot something because I am not a list maker and I need to be a list maker, but I'm just not. If I make the list, I forget it and I don't bring it. So I'm just like, well, whatever. I have improved, you guys, because I use notes on my phone now. So thank you so much to iPhone for that. But we were in the grocery store and they were being really bad, okay? Like, it was loud and crazy, and somebody was probably, like, crying. It was probably Josie. I'm sorry, Josie. You guys are getting used today as an illustration. But it was just really chaotic. And I can remember I was sitting there, and I was talking to them. I was trying to, like, talk to them, love them, be patient with them, all of these things. And this woman came up to me. And she was like, I just want to come and tell you, thank you so much for loving your kids like that. Because there's so many times that I've been out in public and people's kids are, going crazy. And their response is to yell. Their response is to, discipline. Their response is this, whatever it is. And I didn't tell her, listen, that has been me a few times, okay? Like, I am not always this way with them. But it was in that moment that the Lord spoke to me where he was like, this is me right here. And as a mother, you need those times where God speaks that to you, where he's like, look, I'm using you right here, Holly. This is you reflecting me right here, Holly. This is you loving me most right here in this moment. The way that you're loving your kids, the way that you're responding to the situation is you loving me the most. And another time, and there's been several times that this has happened to me whenever I worked a job, outside of the home. I have had coworkers come to me and be like, I don't understand how you can have peace in this situation. I don't know how you can respond this way. I don't know how you come in here every single day joyful. Why are you able to bake things and bring them when you have all of these children? Like, where do you get the time? Like, there's all these different things that are said. And every single time that someone would say that to me, I would always be like, this is Jesus. This is Jesus. It's not Holly. Every time that I've ever been able to do anything, it's never out of my own strength. It's always his. And during those moments that would happen, it was because I was loving him the most. I was drawing close to him. And when I did not respond that way, it was because I wasn't. It was because I was allowing something else to get in the way. To love Jesus most, we have to think about him all the time, don't we? I mean, what we treasure, what we adore, those are the things that our thoughts land on, right? So our thoughts should automatically drift to him always. They should always drift to him, you guys. In the morning when we get up, it should be him that we think about. As we're going about our day, it should be him that we're thinking about. But how many times in a day can we honestly say, well, I thought about the Lord all day today? Because I can tell you right now, I can name a huge long list of things that occupy my mind. And they're not bad things, okay? Because we get it in our head, we're like, oh, well, I'm not thinking about anything bad, so this is just stuff that's taking a place because it's good things. But what occupies our mind and thoughts the most? Okay, who do they drift to the most? If it's my kids, if it's my spouse, my job, my friends, my entertainment, that one hurt real bad when I was writing this because that can really get me, you guys. If those things are all taking first place in my mind, then I'm not loving him the most. If there's something that your thoughts are fixated on all the time, that's the thing that's in control of you. That's the thing that's in control of you. And that's the thing that has your first love, you guys. And to me, that is terrifying because I have to know that I'm putting him first, that I'm loving him first, because I can't do anything for my kids. I cannot do anything for James well if Jesus is not before them in my mind and in my heart. All of those things are good things. Our family, our spouse, our marriage, our jobs, all of these are necessary things. These are all things that, are good things. But those good things become not good for us whenever we allow them to have control of us. When the way that I respond to people depends on how the behavior of my kids are, that's not okay. When I get up in the morning and it's chaos and crazy, if everything that's going on around me affects me and it affects how I respond to everyone and it affects like the way I'm going to behave, then I'm letting it control me. Because the Lord, if he's in control of us, we can be in the middle of chaos. We can be in the middle of something not great, not fun, but we can still respond with hope, with peace. But we can only do that if he is first, if we're loving him first. When I'm not putting him first, that's when I can begin to worry about my kids instead of trusting that the Lord's going to take care of them. Whenever I'm not putting him first and I am, if James and I have an argument, everything that happens between the two of us controls me. It affects me to where I'm like, well, I can't have joy in this day today because he's angry at me. I can't have peace right now in this moment because him and I had an argument right here or whatever went on. How many times do we let something else control us instead of in that moment of those things happening, us saying, Lord, help me to love you most right now. Help my response to come from my love for you, not how well I'm getting along with my spouse, not how great my kids are behaving, not how much sleep I'm getting from my toddlers waking up, okay? That one is a big one right now for me, you guys. Like, it tries to occupy my mind a lot. When I started writing all this down, I was like, Lord, this is so hard because when we're living day to day, like these are the things that we're doing. Like, this is the stuff that we're navigating through all day, every day. And I'm like, God, it's so hard to sit here and tell people, hey, don't let this stuff control you. But then I was like, hold on a second. Why is it hard for me to say this to you guys? It's because this is the stuff that's personal. This is the stuff that we're vulnerable in. This is the stuff that's hard. Because these are the things that whenever we look at ourselves, we're like, hold on a second. I can name all of these things that I did within the past week. And then we start to feel shame, don't we? We start to feel bad. We start to feel like, oh, well, I'm weak because look at me, I'm doing all these things. But I'm saying all this stuff to you because when James said, you have an advocate, run to him, these are the moments that we need to run to him in. These are the very moments that we need to run to him in. When we talk about, well, we're going to mess up, we're going to sin, our mind automatically goes to, well, okay, what's something bad that I've done? But we need to start thinking in a way that's, okay, Lord, what's something good that I'm letting control me? What is something that I need to run to you with and say, God, help me to not let this thing control me. Help me to not let this good thing in my life, this thing that's meant to be good, that's how I'll say it, this thing that's meant to be good in my life, control me. Because that's when the enemy can come in and he begins to use those situations, those people against us. And that's whenever we can start to, I don't know what the word is, we can start to harden ourselves toward those things. You know, it's real easy for me in a day to be like, Lord, I already had a set of twins and I survived it and made it through. God, why did you give me a second set? It's really easy for me to have those thoughts, you guys, and I'm just being honest. And listen, I love my kids. Anybody that knows me and is with me, I love them. I pour out my life for them daily. But sometimes I love them too much. And that's something that God's convicted me of because he's like, I'm not first place right here, Holly. I'm not first place for you. And that's why those thoughts begin to come in where it's like, God, how can I do this? And I start to say, why did you give me this instead of saying, thank you, Jesus, that you've blessed me with this? That's the enemy, you guys, coming in, and he twists the good things of God. He turns them and he uses them against us. But the way that we battle against that is by loving him most. Always. It's by saying in those moments or those thoughts that come in, Lord, take this captive and help me understand who I am right now in you, Jesus. Help me love you first in this moment. When my first love is given to him, my daily behavior responds with peace, gentleness, and kindness. Now let's think about that. Peace, gentleness, kindness. How many times in a day do we not respond with peace, gentleness, kindness? It's all the time. If you guys are not shaking your head yes, then you are lying right now because it is all the time. Every single day, all day long, the Lord places these opportunities in front of us, doesn't he? Where he's like, right here is a moment where you can respond in peace, with gentleness, with kindness. And if we'll begin to recognize those moments, and if we'll begin to start saying, okay, Lord, help me right here. Help me to love you most right here, Jesus. Help me to put you first right here, Jesus. He's going to begin to teach us how that looks in our daily lives, how we walk in this way daily. 1 John 4:19 says, we love him because he first loved us. Jesus' example of first love should blow us away. When I said the other day about him loving us perfectly, when I was up here and I said that, that should wreck us, you guys, every day. Every single day that we get up, it should overwhelm us that He loves us first, that He has placed us first, you guys. He gave everything for us. He poured out His life. He poured out His life for us. The only reason that we can love Him best is because He loves us first. And that's enough, you guys. That's enough reason today for me to be able to get up here and say to you, you need to love the Lord more than your family. You need to love the Lord more than your job. You need to love the Lord more than entertainment. You need to love the Lord more than whatever it is that's going on in your life. You need to love Him more because He deserves it. I have to say this to myself. Everything I'm saying to you guys, I'm saying to myself every single day. I am not there yet, you guys. I have not made it to a point where I can say that I'm doing all of these things. But what I know is that the revelation of this has been given to me, and I know that it's possible for me to walk this way, to live this way. And I know that when I begin to live this way, my life gets changed. And I know for a fact that other people's lives around me will be changed. The Lord will use me to change other people when I take revelation of the truth that He's given me and I put it into practice daily in my life. That's how He renews our mind. That's how He changes us. By taking these situations that are so close to our hearts and saying, look at this. How can we do this better? How can we love more? How can we do these things in a way that brings me glory? I was reading, this morning in Sunday school, we talked a little bit about the persecuted church, and I was reading about the persecuted church this past week because I try to do that because I want to remember people that are in chains for the gospel. And so I try to weekly read something that will press me, that will convict me, that will encourage me to love Him more than what I already am, because there's just so many incredible examples of brothers and sisters all over the world that are loving Him most, you guys. And I read this story about this church in Romania. And they were talking about how before they would baptize a believer in the faith, they would ask them to consider the cost of following Jesus. And the reason they did that is because they were like, you're going to have to sacrifice to follow Him. You're going to have to sacrifice a lot, actually, to follow Him. Maybe even your life. You're going to have to sacrifice your family, possibly. You're going to have to sacrifice, you name it. The list goes on and on of what they would have to give up for Him. But they said the reason they did that is because they wanted them to know what it looked like to follow Him, to really follow Him. And you guys, that when I read that, I was like, Lord, we don't even have a clue. We don't have a clue what it costs. Because I know that there are people in this room and we've went through some hard stuff and we've went through some things that we've had to press through to follow Him, that we've had to be like, Lord, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep trusting You. I'm going to keep believing You. I know that. And I'm not trying to minimize that. But what I'm saying to us is that if someone had come to me when I first heard about Jesus and they had said, I want you to consider the cost, Holly, of what this is gonna look like to follow Him, of what you're gonna have to give up. I don't know that I can honestly say that I would have been all in. And I know that we're like, well, that's unfair to do to people that are unbelievers, but why are we not honest about it? Why do we not say, listen, this is going to cost a lot, but the reason it costs so much is because it's worth so much. Is it worth so much to you guys? That's the real question. How much is it worth to you? What are you willing to give up? What are you willing to lay down? What are you willing to say, Lord, these things don't matter to me. I would give them up for you, Lord. I want to say that to you guys today because I want to encourage us and I want to press us to begin thinking in our daily lives, Lord, what am I loving more than you? I know that most of us in this room, we're not going to be asked to lay down our life for Jesus. We're not going to be asked to sacrifice our children, our families, different things like that. Not in the way that, believers in other countries and different places like that are having to do. But honestly, we are having to do those things in different ways, aren't we? Sometimes the sacrifice is that I have to tell my kids, no, you don't get to do that stuff because that's what the world wants. And this is what God wants. Sometimes I have to sacrifice in my marriage and I have to say, Lord, I'm called to love James even when I don't feel like loving him. He's called to love me even when he doesn't feel like loving me. Those are sacrifices that we make within our marriage that are for the Lord. That's us loving God best when we respond this way. There's a quote from Elizabeth Elliot that says, there is no perfect life, there's no perfect job, no perfect childhood, no perfect marriage, and no perfect set of people who will always do what we expect them to do. What we have is a perfect God who is able to lead us through this imperfect life with unfailing strength, incomparable wisdom, and infinite love. Every single day, we're going to be faced with something, some kind of challenge. Sometimes it's minimal, sometimes it's massive, isn't it? Every day, we're going to be faced with something. And every single day, we're going to be giving the choice, are we going to love him more or less in it? And that's what I want to encourage us in today. I want us to be people who can look at our daily lives and say, God, I can see myself loving you most. Like that should be the desire of our heart, you guys. Because when we do that, our families are going to flourish. Our marriages are going to flourish. Our jobs, people will recognize him. Your coworkers will see him in you, and their lives will be touched and changed. Everything that we do every single day in this matters. Loving him most, it matters. And so I just want to encourage us today, as I close, I want to encourage you guys to know I'm not trying to beat you up. I'm not trying to make you guys feel bad today or like, oh man, look at what's going on or what I've been doing. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to instill a sense of urgency within you to understand that we don't have time to mess around. And in order for the world to see him in us and in our lives, we have got to learn to love him the most over everything. And so I just want to pray over us. Colton, you want to come on? I don't know who else is coming, but I know he is. I want to pray over us here for a minute, and I want us to really think about the areas of our lives that we could give him more, that we could love him more. And if nothing has popped into your head during all of this, if there's not something that the Holy Spirit hasn't been like, this right here, if nothing has been given to you, then take this time to ask him, what am I loving more than you, Jesus? Do Do you know that the first time that love is mentioned in the Bible is in Genesis 22, when Abraham is asked to sacrifice Isaac? It's the first mention of the word love in the Bible. And that's crazy, isn't it? Because in that story, we know that God's asking him to lay down the very thing that he loves most because he's asking him to. But we know that what happens when Abraham does the very thing I'm talking about, when he loves the Lord the most, then God breaks in and says, hold on a second. Hold on a second. And that's the deal, you guys, is you have to trust him to know that the very things that I'm asking you to lay in his hands, the very things I'm asking you to place below him and to put him above, you can trust him to do it. You can trust that he has the very best planned for you. He has more planned for us than we can even imagine. But we've got to be vulnerable and say, Lord, I trust you to love you more than anything else. And so, God, we just want to take this time right here at the end, Lord, for you to speak to us, God. We want to hear your voice, Jesus. We want to know your thoughts. We want to know what it is, Lord, that you're calling us to place second so that you can be first. Jesus, we want to look like you. We want the world to see you in us. And God, the only way they can do that is when we love you most.